నమస్తే సార్. ఆల్ ది బెస్ట్ సార్.
థ్యాంక్ యూ. లైవ్ స్టార్ట్ అయింది, చెప్పండి, మాట్లాడతారా?
లేదు కానివ్వండి, కంటిన్యూ చేయండి.
ఓకే ఓకే
ఓకే సార్, రైట్.
గుడ్ ఈవినింగ్ డియర్ colleagues and my dear students. This is Vikram Reddy from ZPSS Poosmanchi, Khammam district. From the last some classes, previous classes, we are discussing important topics from the lesson 17th lesson, Independent India. So we in the previous classes we discussed what were the important social, economical and political changes that we experienced in the first 30 years of the independence. So in the today's class and the last class of the topic, we shall discuss about the emergency. Means what were the conditions that provoked the central government to impose emergency in independent India. So before getting into the topic, we shall look into the learning outcomes. By watching this particular class, we are expecting you to achieve some learning outcomes. So by watching this class, you will be able to comment on Garibi Hatao, the famous slogan given by the Indira Gandhi during 1971 elections. Next, you will be able to analyze the gap between legislature and judiciary that raised during 1970s. Next, you will be able to identify reasons for the growth of Jayaprakash Narayan movement against the central government due to the imposition of emergency. So next, last one, you will be able to express your opinion on emergency. What were the measures taken by the government during the imposition of emergency, whether it gave positive or negative implications on independent India. So with this, we shall get into the lesson. We already discussed in the last class that as the unexpected demise of the then Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri, Indira Gandhi became the Prime Minister in the year 1966. And immediately, within no time, she was forced to participate in the 1967 general elections held for both Lok Sabha and the assemblies of states. But as we discussed, the opinions of the people expected more from the governments, but the governments were failed in fulfilling the needs of the people. So that reflected in the 1967 elections. So the central government under the leadership of Indira Gandhi, it hold the power with only less majority, but Congress party lost many states, it defeated in many states, and the different opposition parties led governments in different assemblies. So that gave a change for the one party dominance to multi-party system we discussed in the last class. But after attaining power, after the 1967 elections, as Indira Gandhi was new to the power, she did not have much control over party, and she has only less majority in the parliament. So immediately after becoming prime minister after 1967 elections, Indira Gandhi introduced different new policies and programs among the people. Her main aim was to get control over Congress party and to get control over the government. So she tried to introduce some policies, implement some new policies and programs. So the her main, but due to the rise of internal conflicts among Congress party, so to get control over the Congress party, she expected to get control, she called for the early elections to Lok Sabha 1 year early, that is in the year 1971 instead of 1972. So up to 1971, the elections, general elections were held in India in the regular intervals of 5 years, subsequently both for Lok Sabha and the assemblies. But the first time elections were held separately for Lok Sabha in the year 1971, and the elections for state assemblies were held in the year 1972 after the completion of 5 years. But Indira Gandhi went into Lok Sabha elections 1 year early. Through that elections, she want to get control over the party. So as the Congress party has experiences of as it lost the faith of the people, as the Congress party did not fulfill the needs of the people, or it did not reach the expectations of the people. So under the leadership of Indira Gandhi, Congress wanted to get into elections with a new perspective. So to attract masses, particularly the poorer sections, she gave a slogan, Garibi Hatao, means removal of poverty. So this Garibi Hatao slogan, it directly connected and attracted the poorer sections of the people, because after the completion of even 20 years of independent India also, but the poorers retain as poor. They were they did not able to get sufficient satisfy their needs. So they expected the Indira Gandhi will remove their poverty, and she will work for the betterment of their lives. So the mass people or poorer sections throughout the country, they were connected to the slogan given by Indira Gandhi, that was Garibi Hatao. And along with the Garibi Hatao slogan, Indira Gandhi and the Congress party promised the people to restructure the Indian government system towards the benefit of poor and marginal sections. So it was also this promise was also attracted the poor sections. So due to this promises and the slogans given by the Indira Gandhi, she won the elections, 1971 general elections, with a record margin. She got more than 400 seats. So immediately after the elections in the year 1971, India was forced to met a war with Pakistan over Bangladesh issue. As India won the war against Pakistan, and another side the results of 1971 elections. So these two wins raised the popularity of Indira Gandhi. The critics they said she became the darling of masses. The masses were they considered their own daughter, or they considered Indira Gandhi as their own representative. With the wins in Lok Sabha elections and win over Pakistan, it gave rise to the rise of popularity of the Congress party and Indira Gandhi. So it helped in the 1972 elections, which held for assemblies of different states. So as Congress party lost many states in 1967 elections, so with the help of popularity of Indira Gandhi, some Congress won majority states in the 1972 elections. So automatically Indira Gandhi got complete control over party and the government. She became the undisputed leader of Congress party, and she became the icon of Indian nation. So with the encouragement given in the elections given by the election results, she passed many legislations, particularly for the transformation of social and economical fields. She sincerely she had put efforts for the socio-economic changes in India. So particularly some of the important legislation she made in the Lok Sabha was nationalization of private banks to help the poorer sections, or to give credit to the common people, or to reach the banking facilities to the uh, marginal sections. She nationalized the private banks. Next, also the government abolished the princely pensions. What are these princely pensions? Means during 1947-48, immediately after the independence, while during the during the unification of princely states into Indian Union, the government promised these princes, the representatives of princely states, if they accessed their kingdoms into Indian Union, the Indian government offered pensions. The government uh, will pay pensions to those princes. So the princely pensions were introduced after the unification of princely states into Indian Union. But by passing a legislation, Indira Gandhi abolished princely pensions. So naturally, these type of decisions, nationalization of private banks, abolition of princely pensions, these decisions hurt the benefits of some groups or some sections of people who were able to influence the society. So these decisions or these legislations were challenged by that groups in courts. But Indira Gandhi thought these courts were coming in the way of the achieving political goals. She thought that she was putting sincere efforts to achieve political goals, to achieve social and economic changes in Indian society. But these courts were coming in the way, uh, and the courts were obstructing her in working for the achieving of political goals. But at the same time, in the view of courts, these sort of changes to the Indian constitution uh, will unbalance the relations between the different institutional structures. So go on amending the constitution, go on making changes to the constitution, will unbalance the relations, will change the complete basic structure of the constitution. So with the different views, in the year 1973, Supreme Court announced a landmark decision. One of the familiar decision by the Supreme Court in the year 1973. It announced the judgment that it put by that judgment, the Supreme Court put a check on the government's power to amend constitution basic structure. Though the government or the parliament has the right to amend the constitution, but it prohibited or it restricted the parliament's or government's power to amend the basic structure of the Indian constitution. Though the government and parliament, the representatives of the people, has right to amend the some of the guidelines in constitution in favor of the people, but uh, the the parliament has no right to amend the constitution's basic structure. So basic structure could not be amended. That was the judgment given by the uh, Supreme Court in the year 1973. But by the judgment of the Supreme Court, Indira Gandhi thought it was difficult to fulfill the promises given to the people during the elections, during the campaign of elections. So, at the same time, as courts became hurdle, or courts' judgments obstructing her to fulfilling the promises given to the people, some unexpected political and economic events that took place inside and outside the country that were also uh, forced situations against the government. Particularly, the economic conditions were changed due to external conditions. There was a war went in between Arab countries and Israel in the year 1973. So that war, due to the participation of all Arab countries and Israel in the war, so those countries were the main producers of oil. So due to the participation of these all countries in the war, that led to the rise of oil prices to an all-time high. The oil prices reached to all-time high. So whenever the oil prices rised, that led to the inflation, means sudden rise in the prices of essential items due to the increasing in transport expenditure. So the rise in prices that immediately affected on the common people, that led to the scarcity of food and increased in unemployment and increased in black marketing. So these all conditions that led to the unhappiness or discontent among the people. So the people were discontent people. They started movements. They organized rallies, or they organized um, some movements against the government. So the opposition parties and other political parties in different states, they were also led movements against the governments, against these changes, rise in prices, black against black marketing, against unemployment. So all these opposition parties were consolidated and united under the leadership of J. Prakash Narayanan, and these parties organized a series of campaigns all over the nation against Congress. So this movement came to be called as JP movement or J. Prakash Narayan movement. So this movement became prominent in Bihar and Gujarat, and the movement was led by communist parties in West Bengal, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, in different parts of the country. So while these movements started and they rise to reach to peak, that unhappiness and discontent raised among the people. But when these type of situations occurred in the early years of independence, the prime ministers like Nehru and Lal Bahadur Shastri, they made series of negotiations with the leaders who led the movement. They try to understand the problems in the perspective of the people, but the independent India experienced that type of relationship between the people and the governments. But the first time, the government, without considering the previous experiences, or without considering the opinions of the discontent of the people, it reacted in other way, and it reacted harshly against the people. So it tried to suppress the social movement. For that, it enacted a series of laws, and it violated the civil rights provided by the constitution on the name of maintaining order. So instead of considering the opinions of the people, it tried to suppress the movement. So it led to the again rising of discontent among the people. The opposition parties considered or criticized the uh, Indira Gandhi personally. At that crucial moment, another unexpected decision judgment given by the Allahabad High Court. As per the Allahabad, it gave a judgment against Indira Gandhi to unseat from Lok Sabha, as a case was filed by the opponent of Indira Gandhi, as she violated the election provisions in 1971 elections. So the Allahabad High Court took decision against Indira Gandhi to unseat from Lok Sabha, but she went to her Supreme Court and she got stay from Supreme Court. Stop the implementation of the decision judgment given by the Allahabad High Court. But already the movement, the social movement was going on, leading by opposition parties against Indira Gandhi and the Congress-led central government. This Allahabad High Court decision gave them more strength, and the JP movement gaining strength. So at that conditions, frustrated with the social movements, government instead of trying to resolve the resolve the problems, it took a harsh decision. Government imposed emergency. So within 30 years of the independence, as the critics expected that the democratic setup was strengthening in independent India, unfortunate decision was taken by the central government. It misused the majority given by the people in Lok Sabha, and it imposed emergency. It convinced government justified its decision, it as the necessary decision. It propagated that it was a necessary decision to preserve law and order and to preserve national integrity or to save democracy. It justified in its own way. Democracy was put in hold as per the emergency. The civil rights were put on hold, and the fundamental rights of the people were suspended under the provisions of emergency. So government took repressive measures to control the social movements which were organizing by the opposition parties in different parts of the country. Even fundamental rights were suspended. The people experienced, and the country experienced some instances of arbitrary arrest or arbitrary detention, means unlawful detention of the people, and even the police personnel tortured the important leaders who were fighting against the government, and other violations of civil liberties or civil rights of the people. So this was the first kind of experience to the people. Even they did not experience such um, suppressive measures during British rule. So instead of suppression of the movement, the discontent among the people was raised. At the same time, the government under emergency took some steps. Some of the steps or decisions were welcomed by the people. For example, the mainly affecting over price rise. Government tried to control the rise of prices. Next, the government's decision campaign against black marketing took severe steps against the individuals who were participating in the black marketing, and also bonded labor was abolished. So such decisions taken by the government were welcomed by the people, but at the same time, some decisions taken by the governments had given chance for criticism. Some programs became unpopular decisions taken by the government, like demolition of slums in the name of establishing or creation of healthy surroundings or neat towns and cities. Instead of maintaining cleanliness and these all, they demolished slum areas. So that affected the people. Next, to control the population, size of population in India, they implemented forced sterilization to the people. So the demolition of slums, forced sterilization to control the population. So these the aim might be right, but the process that implemented by the government that hurted the some sections of the people. Next, but due to the though the discontent was increased among the people, but as the civil rights, freedom, fundamental rights were abolished, the people could not, they did not get a chance to express their discontent. At that time, as the government, it was serious about the implementation of achieving social and economical goals. She government was serious in achieving of social and economic transformation. So for that, the government amended the constitution, which was famously known as 42nd Amendment to the Indian Constitution. So the main items in the amendments were: courts were excluded from the election disputes. Means courts cannot interfere in the election disputes. Was the one of the important amendment to the constitution. Next, the 42nd Amendment strengthened the central government. Automatically, that led to the weakening of state governments. So, in the Indian Union, as per the Indian Constitution, both the central government and state governments are equal. They have equal rights and they have equal prominence. But by the 42nd Amendment, the Congress government or the central government strengthen the central government by vice versa weakening the state governments. And the protection to socio-economic transformation legislations from judicial challenges. Means nobody can challenge in courts on the legislations made for the social and economic transformation. The will of the government was clear. It was aimed to achieve social and economic transformation, but it was they were protected from the judicial challenges. That was the another amendment made in the 42nd Amendment, and making judiciary subservient to the parliament. Actually, as per the basic structure of the Indian Constitution, parliament, that means the legislature, executive, and the judiciary were the independent organs. They were interrelated, but by the 42nd Amendment, there were some restrictions mm, were made in the freedom of judiciary. So judiciary was made as a subservient to the parliament. So the government expected these decisions or these changes will strengthen the democracy. But in reality, the amendment weakened the democratic fabric of the country. Means the ultimate, the means more powers were delegated to the central government. So central government became ultimate by abolishing the freedom of judiciary, mm, particularly. So these were the important concepts of the 42nd Amendment. So we discussed about the first 30 years of the independent India, how the leaders and the government drove the nation towards the development, and how the independent India drove the people towards the social, economical, and political transformation. But the first 30 years of independent India experienced in the strengthening of democracy. But there was a black mark in the history, was the imposition of emergency. So what were the success and failures of the first 30 years in independent India? The first 30 years ended with emergency, but we can observe more achievements than the failures within 30 years of independence. The important achievement was that establishment of stable democracy. So democratic form of governments were established. In the process, also it experienced the stable democracy. It strengthened in India. Emergence of multi-party system. Actually, the Indian democracy experienced one a single party dominance in the first 15 to 20 years, but slowly it turned into multi-party system. That was the one of the important change. Next, the strengthening of democracy depend upon the regular elections, free and fair elections. All the political parties and governments in India, they supported for the conducting of elections in the regular intervals, and they supported for the conducting of free and fair elections. Though the Congress party was in power, it also encouraged and it also helped in the conducting of free and fair elections. So the free and fair elections gave a scope to the people to elect their own representatives as per their wish. So that gave scope to the people. So automatically that is considered as the that is helped in the strengthening of democracy. So that led to the free and fair elections led to the genuine change in the governments. Even Congress party won elections in the 1967 at the central level, but in many states it lost elections and opposition parties formed the government. But the central government accepted that, and it invited the opposition parties to form the governments. So these type of steps taken by the political parties and the governments led to strengthening the democracy. Next, the constitution provided the civil rights and fundamental rights to the people. The governments maximum try to provide such rights. They make the people made the people to enjoy the civil rights and fundamental rights, except during emergency of last 2 to 2.5 years. Next, the success of democracy was depend upon the independent institutions. The work of the independent institutions like election commission, comptroller and auditor general, judiciary, and these were the independent organs which worked to strengthen the democracy in favor of the for the benefits of the people. So these organs they helped in strengthening democracy. And bureaucratic neutrality. Though the governments were changed for every 5 years, the parties in power might also changed. But the bureaucratic setup means the civil servants, central government employees, state government employees, they were neutral, not lean towards any political party or any government. So the bureaucratic neutrality led to the development of the people who have different opinions politically. That was the another achievement. Next one, civil control over armed forces. The armed forces were key in strengthening the internal and external security. But the armed forces are not ultimate or independent organ like election commission or judiciary. They worked under the civil control, means under the control of parliament or the government. So that helped in strengthening the democracy. Next, maintained unity and integrity. Next one, planning commission was set up, independent organ to drive the nation towards the proper planning development. Next, balanced. The planning commission tried to develop a balanced regional development, but it achieved balanced regional development. What achieved little bit. The governments were very serious and concerned for the social and economic deprived sections. The governments took decisions and implemented a lot of programs for the development of deprived sections, and they were aimed to achieve social and economic betterment. Next, independent India in the first 30 years, it achieved the self-sufficiency in the production of food grains. So these were considered as some of the achievements. At the same time, some of negative reflections means the fulfillment of the people's needs were not achieved in proper way in some aspects. Particularly, balanced regional development did not take place up to the mark as the people expected. So that's why that led to the regional movements in different parts of the country, like Telangana movement during 1969. Next, the employment opportunities did not increase, though the governments were encouraged industrial sector to shift the people from rural areas to urban areas by providing employment opportunities. But it did not increase the employment opportunities. So that led to the discontent among the people. Next, another important negative reflection was that low priority was given to primary education and primary health. The independent India was facing the negative reflection till today due to the low priority to the primary education and the primary health. And the social discrimination and the general discrimination was continued, which as compared with the uh, pre-independent India, means the governments did not focus much on the abolition of social discrimination or eradication of gender discrimination. So apart from this, we can conclude that the independent India achieved a lot in the first 30 years of the time. So we shall discuss in the next lesson what were the changes that take place in the next 30 years of time in the independent India. So with this, I will conclude um, my lesson. So I am thanking you all for giving me this opportunity to teach the lesson for the last 4 classes. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, sir. Vikram Reddy, sir. Thank you very much
Thank you, sir.
for your services, valuable services, sir.
I think
It is
Thank you.
very good opportunity, and you
Thank
are
you.
utilizing very successfully and presenting also the same, sir.
Thank you.
All the best
Thank you.
once again. Thank you very much from Social Studies Forum, Khammam and Suryapet district.